Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We are live, and we got a hot ticket for you today. We are saying pretty much everything that's going to get us in trouble, all in one episode, so let's make it spicy and fun. Right off the bat, we're going to be talking about, and I'm saying it. We've already put ourselves in, talking jail. So just say COVID. We're just saying COVID. No more boogeyman germs, no more dancing the lines. The environmental impact of COVID masks. That's topic one. Moving on from that will be Biden's campaign raises record-setting war chest of a $42 million headset in January. Moving in to this big spicy campaign. And finally, David and I are going to break down the Putin interview. That all being said, let me introduce my co-host, my good friend, David Cunningham.
Oh, it's good to be here. I missed
from Puerto Rico. I wanted to give you shit. I meant to say, back from evading taxes like Logan Paul.
If you couldn't tell, I was hanging out with Cleveland's brightest over in the great island nation of Puerto Rico. But Pete Buttigieg really did let me down here. That's why I wasn't here last week. And oh boy, I'm glad I'm here this week. So last week's a bit of a circle jerk here with you and Doug. So I think we need to bring the tism level down here a little bit as we get.
That insulting,
especially the tism part. You should be offended. Now that being said, I really do find it funny that David wants the fruits of the show. He wants the fruits of the show so bad to be antagonistic to whatever I'm saying. Like, I'm saying whatever I'm saying. Like, I'm walking in, whatever my heart says, that's what I'm going with. David's goal is whatever is the opposite to avoid, as quote, the last, 40 episodes, as he says, to avoid a circle jerk.
We don't, no one likes a circle jerk unless you're in the middle.
Unless it's right. I think we should all be doing the circling. If, the conversation is based around the truth. I would not choose idiocracy for the sake of, the elephant walk. I just walk it, baby.
We should all be concerned about the mental state of our presidential candidates.
Boom.
I agree.
There you go. Circle jerk.
All right, Brian. How are we doing back here? Bail me out here of this.
I
this new romance
chose not to join the circle jerk. I will just be outside and not even viewing from a distance. So
just switching the cameras between all the different angles. Now that being said, let's dive into the first one. Let's really upset some feathers. All right, David, I'm going to go on a little bit of a diatribe here.
All right.
The COVID-19 pandemic, which swept across the globe starting in, as the articles say, 2019, which means I think they know a little bit more. It's 2020, but I think we know a little bit more to that than we're willing to admit. That being said, it led to an unprecedented surge in the use of personal protective equipment, PPE, particularly face masks. This was an unnecessary measure to curb the spread of the virus now that the lens of time and perspective has given us this truth. But it also had an unintended environmental consequence, which is these negative impacts of face masks and its waste on the climate and the broader environment, which can be understood through various dimensions, 4 to be exact. Waste generation and management challenges, its carbon footprint, resource intensity and pollution, and finally, impact on recycling systems. So firstly, waste generation and management challenges. This is 2-part: increased plastic waste and improper disposal. So firstly, with increased plastic waste, the majority of disposal face masks are made from plastic-based materials like polypropylene. These masks added significantly to the global plastic waste burden. Unlike some other forms of plastic waste, single-use masks are not recyclable through conventional means due to their makeup and contamination risk, leading to the increased landfill waste and incineration. Secondly, improper disposal. Many masks were not disposed of properly, leading to litter in cities, waterways, and natural habitats. This not only poses a risk to wildlife, but also contributes to the broader issue of plastic pollution in oceans, affecting marine life and ecosystems. Okay, so secondly is the carbon footprint.
Yep.
We want to look at production and transportation. The production and distribution of billions of masks worldwide required significant amounts of raw materials and energy, contributing to CO2 emissions. The carbon footprint of face masks includes the extraction of raw materials, manufacturing processes, packaging, and transportation to users globally. This surge in demand led to an increase in industrial activity related to their production, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. Thirdly, resource intensity and pollution. So, chemical pollution and resource consumption. The production of masks involves various chemicals, especially in the creation of synthetic fibers. The disposal and sometimes incineration of massive quantities of masks can release these chemicals into the environment, contributing to air and water pollution. The resource consumption side of things, the production of disposable masks requires significant water and energy resources, contributing to the resource depletion and environmental degradation. The energy-intensive nature of producing synthetic materials used in masks exacerbates the environmental footprint. And finally, the impact on recycling systems. What we experienced was a contamination of recycling systems. There have been instances where disposable masks were incorrectly disposed of in recycling bins, contaminating the recycling stream. This not only makes the recycling process more difficult and expensive, but can also lead to entire batches of recyclables being sent to landfills or incinerators instead. So before I conclude with mitigating this issue, I want to toss it to you.
Well, it sucks. I've never been a fan of single-use items, single-use plastics. And if you remember way early on, like the first probably about, we'll call it 3-4 months of the pandemic in 2020, you started seeing some news articles like, oh, wow, the air is like significantly cleaner. You can see like LA, you're able to like see from one edge of the city to the other because the air was so much cleaner. The Hudson River in New York City was clear enough to like look through for the first time, probably in any sort of recorded history as long as the city's been around. And there's even reports of like whales. I don't know if I'm remembering the Avengers movie, but there's reports of like sea life coming back into like the areas in which humans were abundantly around. And that was immediately thrown away as we started getting back to things and into life. What we saw, we shut a lot of things down, but there was pent up demand, for all sorts of different things, for
toilet paper,
all sorts of different stuff. And due to the the nature in
baking soda. I
remember trying to get yeast for bread. Oh, that was a nightmare. But So we're basically just restricted from doing a whole lot of different things, and all of a sudden, when we're allowed to be out and free, out in life, well, now I want to do all the things all the time. So all the environmental things we helped with the environment just for like 3 months, we weren't doing anything. We're just erased away by all the damage we did right afterwards, and I think
and still do,
absolutely. And like with the masks too, the single use nature of them, and you were using them everywhere. Oh. You had to use them outside. You had to use them inside. You had to use them all sorts of different places. They got sweaty. They got gross. And they, I think when we were encouraged to use cloth masks, which I think the efficacy of a cloth mask is questionable at best. At least when you're using surgical masks, there's a bit more stuff you're blocking, whether it be 100% effective or as effective as they were advertising. That's to be debated, and I think the science is somewhat, for the most part, proven on that end. But when we just threw everything away, and you're still seeing, if you go walk out in the street, go walk out in the woods, they're still out there. There's mass all over the place. It's out in the ocean. There's still mass floating around. It sucks. I hate it like so much. On that end.
Or
I mean, like, I used the cloth like washable ones just because like I'm also young. I also wanted something comfortable. Like those surgical, the ones you use and throw away, like those sucked. Like they would get hot and itch or like not fit. Like those were annoying. So I bought like nice, lightweight, breathable ones because at least it did something. And then boom, people couldn't complain. But it's like remember at the beginning of the pandemic, they're like, oh, you don't need a mask. Just stay home because we didn't have
Right.
enough. And then as soon as we got enough, they're like, wear them all the time. Throw them out when you're
No,
done.
you got to
Yeah.
say it like this. We don't need the masks because they're ineffective. And then, fast forward a week, you all must double mask. Look at me at a Phillies game. Double mask. All I'm saying, Doug, you're 100% right. David, I like your position. I'm going to conclude with this. This is the wrapping of my point, not the whole topic,
The whole
but
time, yeah.
wrapping my position. How do we mitigate or develop alternatives to this situation? So there's 4 real hard ways. Reusable masks, as kind of aligned with David's position, and proper disposal, innovation in materials, and policy and regulation. So firstly, using reusable masks, okay? Encouraging the use of reusable, washable fabric masks can significantly reduce waste. These masks provide an effective barrier against the virus when used correctly and can be made from existing materials, reducing the demand for new raw materials. That being said, all of you that have the classic rethink tank from the beginning of the pandemic, real mask
I
that
got
says
that.
not afraid to rethink, duct taped across your mouth. Yeah, those environmentally, liberally, super Democrat, climate good. So good thing you got one. That being said, you also need to consider proper disposal. Public awareness campaigns about the correct disposal of masks and the environmental hazards associated with the proper disposal can help reduce the impact. Specialized bins and collection points for used masks can also improve waste management. Could be good, something we've never implemented anywhere. So yeah, glad we consider that one. Innovation in materials. Research in biodegradable or more sustainable materials for disposable masks could help reduce their environmental footprint. Some companies have started developing masks made from materials like plant fibers, which can decompose more easily than traditional plastics. And finally, policy and regulation. Governments and international bodies can play a crucial role in the implementing policies that encourage the production, use, and disposal of these masks in environmentally friendly ways. This could include regulations on mask materials to ensure they are biodegradable or easier to recycle. Aside from all of those, I love your point. Yeah, reusable, great. Aside from all, what's the heart of these? Keep people educated and tell them where to do it, how's the best way, everything else. And you know what? What was the heart of the pandemic? Nobody wanted to do bad. I'll let you throw a experimental juice in me because I just don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to kill my neighbor's grandma, and I want to do what's right. The heart of all of this, though, all of these suggestions and alternatives, mitigating factors, is education and keeping everybody in the loop. And let's acknowledge what we learned. One, you lied to us. You told me to have a mask, and then you told me, or first you said don't need a mask, then you said get a mask. Why? Because, well, we didn't know we were going to have enough masks when we needed them at first. And it's like, okay, so you admitted right off the bat, you're not telling me what I need to hear or what's right or appropriate for me to evaluate the truth. You're telling me what you think you need to tell me to get the action you're trying to get. That all being said, what's my position? What did we learn? And what they're not overly broadcasting, but that's what the Rethink Tank's here for. We're going to scream it at the high heavens. We're going to let you know that they admitted, Fauci and all of them themselves admitted, they have no use. They are useless. They did not help you. Okay, did it cut down on certain water particulates? Admittedly, we all acknowledge, probably. But then they also admitted the science, like in the last 2 months, they admitted, yeah, the 6-foot thing, that was just me. That was me, Fauci guy. I just did it. I just thought, hey, I picked a number. It sounded good. And now you all got stupid stickers all around your bank. So none of it was grounded in truth. And so if the crux of all their positions is, of all the right positions, is to be educated and do what's right, which we wish to do, well, then we need to acknowledge the entities at which we weren't getting the right information and were coercing us and manipulating us. And when we are shown the truth, probably try not to hide from it and just go, okay, June 2020, okay? So this hit March. By June, the CDC goes, yeah, we admit, doesn't live on surfaces. For whatever reason,
Yeah.
we still chemically sprayed every inch of that building
Oh, yeah.
every day. Why? Waste of money. And I'm going to bet, like your sexy walls full of asbestos, I'm willing to bet in a few years, I'm going to find out that working all day on a surface covered in bleach probably ain't anywhere better than like building your immune system with a couple germs. I don't know. So to me, just do away with all of it. Don't wear a mask. Go lick your doorknobs and kiss your neighbor.
We're also not getting the consistency of criticism. So like the environmentalists that come out that will, they'll douse themselves in paint, or they'll throw oil on,
Glue themselves to a street.
Yep, and they'll do that. Where's the criticism for the masking and the perpetuation of just the plastic waste? Because for every singular plastic waste you use, there's probably 3 or 4 levels that it came to on like an industrial level. The packaging it came in on the from the distributor, the packaging it came in on the totes, the packaging it came in for the raw materials. There's several different layers of the water bottle you have right over there. That's the last step of the actual the plastic waste that comes through. I'd love to see more of that criticism on that end, and we don't see it, because if you're criticizing that, you're criticizing the mask. If you're criticizing the masks, well, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're all that. And no one wanted to be labeled as that, especially in those types of groups. It's the disingenuous nature of the whole conversation of it that I hate. Let's call a spade a spade. None of this is good for the environment. Maybe we had to do it at the beginning to really, help cut down and, do good, do what we knew at the limited amount of information at the time. But as we kind of knew more information, where's that criticism ramping up? We never saw that. We never saw the evolution of that.
But let's acknowledge, I agree with you, but you're giving more intellectual credence than deserved to the person today that is still lost in this delirium. Like, okay, what was the crux of your position? When a world pandemic hits and we don't know what to do and we have limited resources, that's not where I am at in 2024. Leading into an election where they're telling me, what is it? The Chinese virus too, whatever they're calling it. What is it? The heart popping virus? Something new is coming. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know
There's some new spooky one that's coming, and it's like, of course, coming just in time for election season. And the curious thing is, okay, I'll tell you what. I remember being in Washington, D.C., spent the day going to these different museums and being at our Capitol, knowing it was the middle of March, knowing it within the next few days, something big's about to happen with this pandemic. We're getting news articles. It's ramping up. And then over the weekend, we were in D.C. We find out that school is off and we have to do it at remote from here on out. Yep. The whole world goes remote. Yep. We're in the middle of D.C. I remember walking around before they made the final call, and you're just like, what could be the possible extent of this? Like, our parents and our parents never saw a time where literally the world stopped. Government buildings.
Before that, they did, though. The flu pandemic in 10?
Name your favorite person alive who was around during that time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He said our parents and our parents' parents. Well, my grandmother was born in 1914, which means go back one more generation. Boom.
Okay, well, I didn't say her mom, and her mom can stay where she's at.
It's pretty close. Your grandmother, if they were a couple years older, may have been alive during it.
True,
yes,
but they weren't. That being said, nobody has ever seen anything like this before. No. And even then, Doug, they definitely didn't see it to an extent. The world wasn't even as interconnected as it is today.
Social media, just the internet alone,
exactly
changes that equation so much than it
digital
was
currency, world borders
definitely affected us more.
What did you say? Canada?
Air travel. Like just people going from China to flying directly to the U.S. Boom, it spread. Back then that it would take weeks on a. You'd
have to be on a boat.
Well, I got to be real with you. I think it was festering for a while, and it just became unavoidable. It just grew.
I think it's probably
like there was a doctor that was of the blue. So I had something really bad, and they gave me like a Z-Pack and some other medications before the pandemic. It was like that happened in March. This was the spring going or winter break going into that or something, and I'm convinced that's probably what I had. So my parents think the same thing. The truth is, they had an idea. Look at the article itself says it started in 2019.
Yeah.
So what do you know that you're not really admitting? You know it, you're admitting it, but you're not really outwardly broadcasting it. And that's kind of our situation. So that all being said, not to get distracted by the point, this was the first time the world just stopped. And I remember, sitting there going, before it happens, you're like, to what extent can this really stop things? Like, the world still does have to move on. No, for the first time, everything stops. Well, guess what? When Chinese heart-popping virus comes out, movie sequel 2, that's not our first time the world stops. No. So you can't play dumb anymore. You can't throw your head in the stand. No more ostrich game. Like, we've lived it. We got to acknowledge it. I'm going to volley it to you, but we got Ricky in the West Wing. So when you're done, we got to flip it to Ricky.
Well, but I think on your point, there's just not an appetite for that type of for combating a virus anymore. There's just no I don't want to stay indoors anymore. There's a significant part of the population that doesn't want to do that again. They're like, well, if I die, I die. If I go to work and I die, whatever. I'm not staying indoors again. And that's, I think that's really where a lot of this is going to come down to. There's just, I wonder how much worse a virus has to be, like killing children dead on the street type of virus, to be able to, okay, well, I guess we're going to go back and we're going to do this again. All right.
No, that's a great point. Ricky,
what do you think?
How we doing from Just Another Day TV?
Good, brothers. Bless up, boys. Bless up. But from the pandemic, y'all can hear me, right? Okay.
So, Ricky, we're talking about how the masks had a significant environmental impact, and kind of the anti-truths we were fed at the beginning of this situation, and then the reality we live in now, and trying to keep a balance of that. I don't know. What do you think?
So, I knew about the pandemic in December 2019.
Oh,
right?
Trendsetter.
Some crap. And then I invited this girl January on the podcast. She was studying college about something to do with socially people, and I asked her about it. She didn't know crap.
People. All right.
Something with social. I don't remember. But the pandemic. We always gonna. I don't remember. I swear it was something to do with like the public itself, like how people move around and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So the pandemic, we always gonna litter. Stuff is always gonna come out more. Like, I don't care about the pollution. The biggest thing I feel like that came out for me was just the cancel of people. The cancel. No one was allowed to share opinion, to say anything. And all the platforms start coming up with the little quite the exclamation mark, fact checking, even if the facts is not true by them, and everything. That was the biggest thing that came out of the pandemic for me, because we always gonna pollute, man. We creating new crap every day. It's just another. There's gonna be trend of stuff. There's gonna be another silly bands. We're gonna be silly bands everywhere around turtles and everything. So it's like, that's gonna always happen.
No, I appreciate that position, Ricky. And the reality is this: when it comes to like the fact checkers, how wild is it that these companies were heavily leaning on these third-party companies to be the arbiters of truth? Yeah. And so, like, here's another article I want to kind of at least wrap my position on. Largest ever COVID vaccine study links shot to small increase in heart and brain conditions. Yeah, just a small increase. Just look the other way. If we use words that make it seem less significant, then it's just a small heart problem. Just look the other way. So researchers from the Global Vaccine Data Network, GVDN, in New Zealand analyzed 99 million people who received the boogeyman germ shot across 8 countries. They monitored the increases in 13 different medical conditions in the period after people received a COVID vaccine. The study, which was published in the journal Vaccine last week, found that the vaccines were linked to a slight increase in neurological, blood, and heart-related medical conditions. Also, according to them, people who received certain types of mRNA vaccines were found to have a higher risk of myocarditis, as many of us know. And that's just sad. That's become just second nature to us anymore, which is inflammation of the heart muscle. Some viral vector vaccines were linked to a higher risk of blood clots in the brain, as well as increased likelihood of Guillain-Barré syndrome, a neurological disorder in which the immune system attacks the nerves. Other potential risks included inflammation of part of the spinal cord after viral vector vaccines and inflammation and swelling in the brain and spinal cord after these mRNA vaccines. They also released. So here's just something interesting, because you got to understand they're bought for. These doctors that we relied upon, the trust the experts. And hey, no experts here. YouTube God, please don't hurt me. Don't smite me. We're not. Go to your doctor. That being said, here's a liberal doctor for you. Dr. Mark Siegel, clinical professor of medicine at NYU, because you know that's trustworthy. NYU's Langone Medical Center. He said, the massive study and review of the data reveals some rare association of the mRNA vaccines and myocarditis, especially after the second shot, as well as an association between Oxford Astra and the Zeneca antivirus vector vaccines. That all being said, he continues, it always comes down to a risk-benefit analysis of what you're more afraid of, the vaccine side effects or the virus itself, which can have long-term side effects in terms of brain fog, fatigue, cough, and also heart issues. However, denying or exaggerating a vaccine's side effects is not good science, nor is underestimating the risks of the virus, especially in high-risk groups. Okay, so in classic liberal deceiving fashion, he does this great balance. You know, you gotta, utilitarianism, great is good for the greatest number of people. You gotta balance lives with the fear of this, or I'm going to at least bulk up his argument and say the threat of these viruses. He says fear because there actually probably is no real threat. That's why you don't use that word. But we got to balance lives with its threat. And the reality is, the lens and perspective of time, we realize there is zero threat. In fact, the flu is more dangerous now, and we're willing to admit that again. So all I'm saying is he looks at you and says, oh, it's a cost-benefit analysis, and don't exaggerate those problems with the vaccines because that could be detrimental. But he's not willing to admit the detriment of exaggerating false sciences that benefit or push your agenda.
Yeah.
And so the truth here is they will go in one article looking over here that has no policy. They'll go, yeah, none of it worked. And then they'll come over here and go, but here's the catchy title of how you need to vote. This is how your policies need to look. We still need masks. We still need vaccines, even though if you do your research with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and all the sciences that led us to here, we'll go in this article over here in a minute. Yeah, I know it's all true. None of it's good for you. But then in the truth, where we're pushing government policies and how you should vote, we go, hey, wait, ignore that. Vote against your will. Give us the power. I don't know. Thoughts?
I think there is some reluctance to at least acknowledge the other side of what your argument would be. So in the case of like the Robert F. Kennedy Jr., yeah, their vaccines in a scenario could lead to a negative consequence of this particular case under these particular pretenses. Yes, that's a possibility. It's a non-zero risk of having, of doing any sort of, medical treatment just in general. However, the benefits outweigh the costs when it comes to certain types of vaccines, like smallpox and all that. To not even look at the other side and go, well, there's some acknowledgement that there is some risks associated with doing this. Now we just go, oh no, it's either all or nothing. It's black or white. There is no in the middle. There's no gray ground. You have to project one thing, and I wonder if this is going to ruin medical science from here on out. Is this going to be just a political game where we say, well, we're going to say the right thing to promote the correct stuff, or are we just going to put COVID in this little box and go, okay, all right, yikes, I don't really want to publish my anti-COVID paper on this, so I'm just going to leave this here, and I'm just going to work on other things as if everything was normal. I think we all hope it's going to be that way. The issue is, I wonder if there's some incentive structures within the medical community where just, well, I'm just going to say the thing that people want to hear, and I'll put a study out there, not acknowledge any of the consequences or things other people don't want to hear. Or if I even get slightly conspiratorial, and we're just going to ignore that, and we're just going to move on to the other stuff. And does this radically change the way we do even just research? Let's take medical research out of it, just general research. The politification of knowledge generation.
How much of people's research is their Facebook newsfeed or their Twitter newsfeed or their TikTok newsfeed?
A ton of it. And I think in fairness to the to part of that point too, is how much time do you have to really dive down deep and really understand? And there's probably we could probably both read some real high level studies and just like, I don't understand half of this.
That's why we do the reading forum, man.
Yeah.
We come in with folders of paperwork because we did the homework. You think, chime in, give us some perspective, give us a little zhuzh of balance and perspective, and we'll save you some time. We'll do a lot of the heavy lifting. That being said, Brian, before we get to the wrapping thoughts,
Yes, sir.
are there any noteworthy comments that we should
Yeah, Bama hasn't gotten
Bama.
back.
Hey, Bama boy, what's
All
up?
right.
Hey.
He hasn't gotten back, so he's up on he's getting tracked next as a control.
What?
And
Wait, what?
What?
he's going to be the control because he didn't get vaccinated.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, that one
All
was
right,
English.
all right.
And I can't pronounce the name. Kabaska said there's no point in self-censoring. You put COVID in the title, and the disclaimer is already showing beneath the video. So
Exactly. We dove in head first.
It's a force of habit.
Well, and I just want to be blatant. Let's broadcast. We are going down with the ship. So all two of you that are watching, God bless you, because it ain't going to double. Now,
One
that
more.
being said, what's
one more.
Oh,
All right.
Forgotten said he called a mask in Lake Erie, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
Hey, Forgotten. Let's be real. Is that not a step up from, I don't know, the syringes you were catching like a couple years ago? Like, hey, it's still good. It's better.
I'll catch a mask over a
And
syringe.
at least the syringe you find this time is like a vaccine. Those were naughty syringes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's give it to Ricky to wrap his thoughts on, I guess, COVID, lies, he doesn't care about the climate environment, the impact.
I guess, yeah,
He
he's
made that clear.
anti-environment.
But
Really.
wrapping thoughts on the topic.
I love the environment, man. I'm all about nature. I'm all about the ocean, bro.
All the time.
I am all about nature, 100%. But what are we really doing as a society to really change that, other than recycling? And recycling don't really work. Of course, Alex, you brought these facts already. Recycling really doesn't work. So what is it really doing? And the powers ahead don't really care, because they would have made adjustments already. I just want everybody to stay out of everybody's business. The scientists to stay in the scientists' lane. The politicians stay in the politicians' lane. The school teachers stay in the school teachers' lane. They don't go start an OF page, Yeah, I want everybody to just get back to their lane and stop feel like they have to be a part of everybody's group. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I don't need every time I watch sports, Becky. You mentioned some politics in sports. I want my sports to be sports. If I want YouTube Senate hearing or something like that to be that. Like, I don't know. Just let everything be what it was before social media, but it's not going to be like that. That's just wishful thinking. But yeah,
we want to keep our sports, and that's why we don't wear Nike in here, David.
Well,
Now,
I wear
being
Nike,
said,
man.
Let's flip it to Doug for his rapping thought.
Well, you talk about doctors like pushing that stuff. My doctor, my old doctor, because now he went private practice and all that bullshit. He recommended getting the initial 2 because he's like, the main thing about COVID is it's new. No one's caught it. Flu, you've had it at one point, now like after the 2, he's like, it's up to you if you want any of the other ones. I like, it's up to you because you've now gotten it. You've been around it. It's essentially flu now. Like that. He said that years ago to me. And like every year when I go to see him for my physical, I'd be like, do you think I should get? It's up to you, but it's basically the flu now. Like, do you get the flu vaccine? I'm like, only because it's like free at work as part of like a flu blood test whole health fair thing.
Can I give you
Only
cyanide
reason.
for free?
Sure.
Hey, there we go. There we go.
But
And
it's
he
like,
votes
I
blue.
haven't gotten the COVID in a while. And then like my doctor, like you're saying, oh, doctors are pushing. My doctor was straight up like, get the initial. And then from there, you're going to be around it enough that you'll get that natural immunity.
But see, I love that point. Great way to wrap it up. But it also comes back to how many people so my wrapping thought is this. We came to the science to learn that like it was better to catch it and beat it than to actually get the vaccine. That the antibodies were better than anything else. And that was a science they hated, they suppressed, they wanted to hide. And so the fact is, when you're saying you're popping athletes are just dropping. There isn't some magical hit. He just hit him at such a perfect speed, at such a perfect angle, with the heartbeat at such a perfect moment that his heart popped. No, that actually is not what happened. You can't convince me of it. That being said, why are there so many videos across the internet of super athletes just dropping? I don't know. Let's call it LeBron James's kid. He seemed pretty good. Or was it that he was overrun on other things? So either you need to admit that you were probably roiding up a child and that you were doing something nefarious over here, or you got to let us investigate. Maybe a kid this young in that good of shape should not be experiencing what he experienced, to the point where it practically takes him out of the sport. So Doug, I hear you. I agree. But there's something weird about why is he your trusted professional? I'm just a guy on the internet. I'm just a guy. Why do I know this? You're going to pretend your doctor doesn't?
More like you, man. He didn't give a shit about the mask. Like the building he was in.
But see,
they said to wear a mask. You'd walk in. He'd go, take that shit off.
I love that. I love that. That's a way of building a bond, a spirit, acknowledging I'm in. I'm one of the guys. I understand. I agree. At the same time, he's still protective of his career enough to where he'll go, you don't need it. It's up to you. He keeps saying it's up to you because deep down he wants to tell you, no.
It was up
but
to
he
me,
can't
but he
because
did mention the myocarditis thing. He's like,
sure,
people your age are showing this now. You're a healthy young dude.
How long did it take?
A risk factor. Oh, after he recommended the initial 2 because you needed to be able to travel and all that shit. And also like, because at the time he said it's like it's a new thing. People don't
try
have
to remember.
That
was it 22? Was it 23? When did you get your last one? And
21, I asked him if I should get it, and he goes, it's up to you. You know, like you've already got your initial. You're good in my book. Like that's all you need. You got the initial. You now have it. You're gonna be around it because everything was starting to wind down. By the time I saw him in the end of 21. All the COVID restrictions were starting to wind down. He's like, you've been around enough people at this point. Like you're going to be around it. It's like the flu,
Right. But okay. So that's now the perspective of his in 22, 23. But the person that was saying that in 2020 and 2021 was ostracized, hung like a witch, and, was made out to be killing your grandma.
He's only 10 years older than us too. So that's also kind of why I liked him.
We're not going in on your doctor here. No, there's zero criticism of Doug's doctor. I'm just saying here, there's still an acknowledgement of, it's kind of like the argument when they go, the government's military would never turn its barrels on us because the military is our people. But there will be a fracturing of those people.
Yeah.
Some of those people are going to be drones that follow the marching orders given to them because that's how well they were.
Or they just
molded.
see the winning side. It's like, well, I'm going to turn on you. I'm going to be on the winning side here.
Exactly. Bingo. Nazis. That just got us in trouble. That being said, that's literally the worst thing I could say on YouTube. Son of a gun. That being said, dang. Sorry. Sorry, gang. We're over. We're going to let the 2 people watching now. They're gone.
Send us a comment if you're still here.
That being said, there will be a fraction of people that go, no, these are my people. This is the reason why I joined the military. I'm not turning on them. They're not going to be the majority. Even if they are, you'll still never deny I want to have a dialogue of the doctors or they talk about police officers with police brutality. We need to talk about the bad actors that walk in lockstep, protected by either the system or their cohorts around them. So, Doug, I agree with you. He may have given you he may have given you enough information for you to properly evaluate it on its own. But you go to a doctor for blind faith. My arm doesn't bend like it normally does or supposed to. What's wrong with it? And he could say, you're listening to too much Taylor Swift and it's messing up your arm. Or he could tell you that, like, hey man, the way you're sleeping with your pillow is jacking up your shoulder. But it really depends on, one, his moral compass, and two, how he balances that with his agenda or the agenda controlling him. So the sad part is you're looking at a person that knows deep down it really isn't listening to Taylor Swift that's funking up your arm. It's the way you're sleeping. So he's going to give you the information about how your iPod affects you. And then he's also going to tell you about emphasizing how bad it is to sleep like that. But for the same doctor that you have blind faith in to sit back and go, but it's up to you. You can either stop listening to Taylor Swift or just sleep different. That's not why I go to them. So if I'm going to an expert to be the arbiter of truth for me, I don't like the indifference for you to protect your career. The protection in your career is following truth in your heart always.
So let me ask you the hard question. So my aunt has a PhD in pharmacology, teaches at a university. She was telling me years ago the risk of myocarditis. She knew about it because she was reading the studies. She was looking at the formula. She had access to it. And she was smart enough to be able to read the mumbo jumbo. So, like, you're saying, oh, I'm trusting someone. Okay, well, your sisters are pharmacists. Did you ever listen to her blindly?
Well, I did. There were periods throughout that time where we may have
blindly
had some
trusted your sister.
Oh, totally. Oh, but again, when I have that blind faith in that authority, I do not call for indifference. I'm calling for my sister for what's right. And I'm having faith in the fact that her determination on what's right has more leniency to her moral compass than her agenda. Your aunt had a leaning more towards
sister. My aunt's going to give me the truth versus the doctor. Your sister.
But let me ask you
the point is you don't need to have blind faith in your relatives because you're just assuming they're having.
Well, that's why I'm not an idiot. I asked multiple sources, did my research.
But that's not what people are doing with their doctor. They're going to their doctor to get the answer. And I want to be honest with you.
Always get a second opinion.
But let's also be real with this, Doug. And we're not going to get the answer here. I'm going to theorize, and it will have an unfair projection. Totally get it. But this definitely is rooted in my disdain for modern education. But I'm going to say I'm willing to bet your aunt admitted all truths around Thanksgiving dinner, but also may have pushed some different truths in that classroom and walked away with a truth that she knows and gave the fact of safety to her family, the ones she cared about, her cohorts she could save. But then she had to get in lockstep in this classroom, at least to a certain degree, simply for self-preservation, so she wasn't ostracized by such a hypocritical and controlling system that is education.
Wrong, but at the university she works in, I know her along with her university, because I don't want to say the university because it'd be easy to figure it out. But her university mandated up until literally this year that they had to get the COVID shot.
Bingo.
And her being a professional in that field, and they're also being medical professionals in that field at the university, were pushing back on that. And then eventually the university gave all these exemptions, basically said, if you meet blah, blah, blah. So basically half the university ended up not getting the shots after a certain point because the professionals at the university were like, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. We know these facts. You can't bullshit the people that know this information. Okay, yeah, maybe you can bullshit the business school. You can bullshit the whatever, the English school, the teaching school, but you can't bullshit the actual medical professionals that are seeing this stuff.
No, that's a fair.
And so that's why it's okay, people were pushing this, but it's some of these professionals were also pushing back as much as they could. Yeah, maybe they don't want to lose their jobs, but at least they're willing to push back a little bit.
But look what it took. There were definitely professors police officers, military people that fell on the sword and were fired, were eliminated from where they were at due to the fact that they made these hard-hitting decisions. It took 4 years of perspective and education and 4 years of people standing their ground for that actually to hold water and for it to actually take effect. Let's take a look at our military. So we have people in our military. Our military is at the lowest it's ever been in terms of people enrollment. And they just announced, like within the last couple of weeks, that they are looking to reopen to those that didn't have the vaccine. Because right now you have to have the vaccine to be in the military. And all the people that were in the military got the vaccine.
A lot of people.
Well, now they're looking to erase that so they could call them back because we've got such a low enrollment. So is it that the vaccine was super, super necessary? No, actually, bodies that can die at our disposal, that's a little bit more necessary than, I guess, killing this virus that is going to kill your grandma. Comment and then
no. Doug, did your aunt or Alex, did your sister talk about SV40 and how it induces cancer and it's commonly in vaccines?
Or, you know what I learned from my sister when I brought up like the mercury? There's not mercury in vaccines anymore, but there were. And they sold it as, oh, well, okay. So first off, it was so they could get multi-doses out of like one dosage. So it was easier to ship, easier to contain and everything. So for you to be able to take multiple draws out of a vaccine, they would put mercury in it. Well, they would say, oh, no, it just goes away. They did all these sciences to follow the mercury in your body. Well, little did we know, all the mercury just went to the middle of your cerebellum and just freaking built up in the middle of your brain. Yep. And then they're like, it doesn't cause autism, as the guy's just drooling on himself like, I'm good. Just lobotomize me. That's also good science that you pushed on all of our relatives. Just shove a rod up my nose. Doc, you're the expert. So, Doug, I hear you, but the scary part is, and I'm not projecting on your aunt because she's great. And we're all in here. We all have good families that care about us. But we cannot deny statistically numbers, people in this tribe of 350 million. There were more doctors, teachers, people of expertise that knew it for what it was and went home and told their family. How many people, I mean, there's a call for it, and I don't think we'll ever get the number for it because there's a truth there. I would love to know how many people deep in the know of these companies whose family members did actually get the vaccine. And I'm willing to bet
did
you
the Pfizer
very
CEO
few.
and their family get the vaccine?
That's what I'm saying.
You feel like that'd be something they would have publicized, would have shown like, look, I'm getting it. You know, and then you'd also, but then you'd have the question of, did he really get it, or did he just get like water injected or
exactly
saline injected?
The one where Biden gets it, it's a retractable needle, and they were like, "Yeah, you caught us," but it's because he actually got it earlier. We just had to put a show on for all you morons. So I don't know. My wrapping thought is, you got to keep your ear to the ground. You know what it is. And stand like cheers to all the people in the comments. You're holding, you know it. We're calling a spade, as David put it at the beginning of the segment. And as long as we all cohesively do this and just put COVID in the title, say COVID. I'm not a medical expert, but I'm also not a moron, and I could talk about life. If this pauses my life or has a severe impact on my life, or you're intruding the privacy of my own body in aborting my DNA, then you know what? I should be allowed to discuss these things. If you're going to mandate putting it in my body for a free cheeseburger in New York, I don't know. What are your rapping thoughts?
Well, it just shows the failure of a one-size-fits-all policy. Whether it be masking, vaccines, how we want to combat, a combination of the two. It just shows failures on all ends. And I think people at the end of the day know what's best for what they at least need to do. Now, I think I'm going to push back a little bit on some of the vaccine things. I think the CEO of Pfizer did get it. I think the CEO of Moderna actually did get it. I think their families did get it. I think executives got it. So we got to remember, this is probably the most widely distributed vaccine in the world.
I don't want to talk business executives. I want to talk about laboratory men and women, the people that were actually there determining and digesting the data, unnamed. You can Google the CEO of Pfizer.
Yeah.
I want to know the folks that were boots on the ground. I'm willing to bet They went home to Doug's the Saluka Thanksgiving dinner and was like, don't get this. And then went back to their classroom and was like, listen, the show that pays me big bucks says you got to get it. You got to get it.
Yeah,
Goes home and goes, don't get it.
I still think the majority of them did get it. I think it's really more of an 80-20 rule. So let's just say, let's talk just people within the medical community and like within the fights, like the laboratories that were really on the, let's call it the ground floor of the production of this. I think 80% of them did end up getting it.
I could believe that.
And I think there's a 20% a little skeptical. It's like, do I want to risk it? Do I have some questions? Does a little more time need to come out before I'm really sold on the science of it? Yes.
I mean, I watched a rat play soccer and it just popped right there.
Yep. Well, the rat also might be on cocaine. They tend to do that. That's why they're white for a reason. But I think there is. I think we do got to take it. If we're going to take perspective on one end of it, we probably need to take perspective on the other end. That people aren't dying in the streets in mass. There's some cases here and there from high-level athletes. Some heart stuff here and there. But I think by and large, the majority of the world that did take the vaccine is fine. They're moving on. Life's going on, and hopefully we learn that let's not do one size fits all policies. I don't think we're going to learn that. I'm going to be a little pessimistic here. I don't think it's going to be something we take away from that, but maybe, cross our fingers, it might be.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Brian, rapid thoughts.
Yeah. I think it's a tragedy about the athletes that have passed away from the vaccine with their hearts popping. I hated the I hated the mask because they made me itch and occasionally break out for no reason.
That was crazy.
I got vaccinated because travel and work. It just
dude, it's better than my excuse. The NFL draft. That's not a good one. I just wanted to go to the Browns
I went to
NFL
the draft. Yeah, that was part of it.
I was not getting it until it was like, all right, well,
yeah,
they're only coming to Cleveland once.
They required you to show the card to enter the draft. I was there too. That was crazy.
Yeah, the amount of paperwork was unnecessary. And if you want to see our content and because we're gonna get shadow banned for this on Instagram. They recently come out with under your settings and content preferences, they have it moderately restricted. So you might want to take that and unrestrict that. Just a
good catch,
little
Brian.
heads up, guys.
Brian's been doing the homework, taking the reins. All right, that being said, let's go into the next topic here. That was dense.
Yeah. I'm excited for this next
son
one.
of a gun. That was more dense than I expected. But that being said, this one's going to be thick.
Oh, yeah.
Biden's reelection campaign raises $42 million in January, adding to a record-setting war chest. President Joe Biden reelection campaign and Democrat allies raised $42 million in January, giving the incumbent president $130 million in the bank for the 2024 campaign, significantly outpacing. This is what's interesting. I love this comment by the article writer. Significantly outpacing his likely Republican opponent, Donald Trump. Okay?
Yep.
Going on here, this haul will go directly to reaching the voters who will decide this election, said TJ Ducklow, the Biden campaign senior communications advisor. That's reason number 355 million that we are confident President Biden and Vice President Harris will win this November. He said, taking a jab at the $355 million New York judge order on Trump to pay his fraudulently overvaluing his real estate. I just think it's funny. Then you go on just to the next page a little bit down. The Trump campaign has not released its January fundraising figures. Trump's main fundraising committee had $33 million on hand at the start of the year compared to the $46 million the Biden campaign's main account did. I just love, how do you get off saying that this is significantly outpacing Trump when you don't know what Trump brought in this year, this month alone, or actually January, and the dude just sold out instantly on $400 tacky gold tennis shoes.
The Trump Force Ones?
Yeah, the Trump Force Ones. So
I want those.
I bet. Could you ever see yourself wearing those? I saw those things.
I wouldn't want to wear them. I'd want to keep them in a case. They look good.
Okay, would I get them for display or like a novelty? Sure, $400. Dude, I don't have $400 for a novelty.
It's an expensive novelty.
And the truth is, I'd want to wear them, but I feel like that's just a tackier call for getting punched in the face like a MAGA hat.
Yeah, that's the next level up.
Notice-
the MAGA hat's like what, $5 to
But
buy?
notice he can't just like come up with a pair of like sleek black Yeezys that just die in with all. No, they got to be like
That's never-
another thing, like a glowing red hat. Like punch me. Like just these giant Doug spitting over the couch.
I was taking a drink as you started saying that. That was good.
But so what's interesting is obviously they're calling it a war chest. This could be a big deal, and he's got lots of money. I got one comment when I read an article like that. I will admit he is the most voted for president of all time.
Sorry, guys.
Most voted for president. That's how he's that loved. But are we really going to sit here and believe that he's made a record-setting war chest of campaign money, and we're going to pretend that came from us? Right? Did it come from you? Did that come from your aunt in college?
Definitely didn't come from anyone I know.
Yeah. So I think it's willing to say, yeah, this is the biggest pot of money Scrooge McDuck has ever sat on, because this is the best, the most cush it's ever been for every political constituent that has had control over us. They're like, oh my God, I will pay. The profit margins they have gotten in this pitfall of an economy has been so high, it's worth every penny to ensure we don't kill the cash cow. I don't know.
No, yeah, all the unions. I know the unions are always big Democrat voters, but is this really with all this money that's being raised? Is this for Biden or is this anti-Trump? Because I think it's the latter on this. We see Trump he's gaining momentum, he's gaining steam, he's running away with the primaries. He didn't even do any primary debates, didn't even participate. Just basically sat on the sidelines and said, and we're gonna watch, see who's my vice president.
Well, we basically know the two candidates at this point, and that's how it's so easy for Biden to raise is because anyone against Trump right now, like you said, is putting the money into Biden. There's not 5 candidates running right now for the primary. No,
you know what? You do a good
Biden.
point. I don't think we've seen at this far into a presidential election, at least even the not the incumbent, but the contender. Haven't even we're already this early in the election. We know, all right, it's going to be this guy, and there's really no question about it. Usually, we're still fighting it out in the weeds until we get to post South Carolina. Now it's.
Technically, RNC still has Nikki Haley, but still, it's pretty much decided.
Yeah. So this is really just a vote for, or this is $1 for not Trump.
Okay. I'll give you that. But to evolve the dialogue just a little bit, because the main topic isn't how much money this guy's got, because we know it isn't on the virtue of his policies or his position, because we all know deep down his brain literally don't work. And he actually is not saying anything that compels us. Really, like you said, it could just be being against what the orange man bad, or there's actually no true fuel behind him. But that being said, another article that came out today was that this year we'll see more elections than ever before, but don't call it a win for democracy. In 2024, around half of the world will go to the polls. Some 4 billion people in 76 nations, the most of any year on record. Some of these elections will be widely considered fair, such as those already held in Taiwan and Finland. Others likely to have a thumb on the scale, with leaders shackling opponents and the media, as in like Rwanda, and the so-called votes in Russia, North Korea, and elsewhere, because we understand those to be a sham. So, Doug, I hear you where you bring up this point where, like, there aren't these 5 candidates. We already know who it is. But it's funny, again, all of our media comes through the middle liberal lens. So, like, as this liberal takes his position, of the 76 elections in 2024, just 43 of them will be free and fair. It is said in a briefing last year. There is a lot of reason to think that the net outcome of 2024 is going to be that we see fewer democratic practices and weaker democratic institutions in many parts of the world. This came from the University of New York. So here's what I'm saying. We understand that there's going to be more people. Like, what was the goal of democracy? Kind of like Catholicism or any other, ideologue. It was to spread. Why were we blowing up sand people for no reason? It's for the spread of democracy. Okay, we're here to spread democracy. So when you take a look at just going across the globe and killing world leaders and putting in our world leaders under the spirit of democracy, it seems like a victory. But here's the scary part. This isn't what is democracy. I'm getting all philosophical on you. Let's pull a little Socrates card out of the back pocket. This ain't Greek democracy. One man, one vote, we all get a say. This is like a compromised political sham under the guise of what philosophically is known as democracy. We don't have the control we used to have. It's all lying to us anymore. And what's funny is this self-righteous propaganda man has taken the position that out of 76, 43 are only going to be free and fair. Yeah, based by you. And guess what? If you were on the other side of the train, they'd be saying that the other half is what's unfair. There aren't fair elections, to be honest. I'm going to pose this to the room. Does anybody believe that there's true democracy anywhere in the world where like one man, one vote, the people's voice directly impacts the control over them?
It depends on
because I'm sorry, real quick. We know America isn't a democracy; it's a representative republic. So I just wanted to acknowledge that nuance.
Well, I guess it depends on the scale. So your town hall votes, your city council vote, I'd say that's true democracy because you can see.
Yeah,
like I'd say the Supreme Court is a true democracy because they vote. You see what justices vote for what now. Ulterior motives, all that, but that's with anybody. There's no, everyone has an ulterior motive why they vote. No one's just truly single issue A, B, or Z.
But that's a true democratic republic.
Yeah.
Because again, those people aren't us.
So you're saying
they were put in there by us.
So you're throwing out the question. Is this where's the most essence of democracy, like
closest to
like
direct
popular vote?
Yes, popular vote or popular will directly impacting the government or the society.
I don't know of any country that
It
necessarily
really doesn't, right?
Yeah,
it's only republics under the guise of democracy.
Yeah, you might have to go to I guess state level for governors and senators. That's one person, one vote.
Sure.
I think we both call that democracy.
I could agree.
Is it representative? But yeah, you're representative, kind of the highest caliber of that person that's in controlling interests. Like if we start narrowing it down, like mayor votes, city council votes, I'd say that's one person, one vote. In the spirit of your question, it's like countrywide. Like, I don't think so. I think anything that's truly what we would call a democracy is actually a republic. We can't. I don't think we've had access to the technology here as of recently to be able to really carry out direct democracy in its most kind of refined form.
No, but it's so funny. There was a clip that just surfaced of Joe Biden. He's trying to sell himself. Man, I wish I had the clip ready. It's just funny because you triggered this thought. But it's him, 29 years old, sitting in like a congressional hearing, and he's like exclaiming how he's an outsider and like they let me in. Like I got lucky because he's like, you don't understand how difficult it is to get in here without selling your soul to money. And he's going on this whole explanation that like to be able to afford to actually even be considered or have influence, you have to sell yourself to these constituents that can make that affordable.
Yep.
And he says, well, then when you're there, they come a knocking. And he goes, I was able to make it because I'm a young kid and they really let me in. But like, I'm going to be here long enough to where like to remain here, that's going to have to be what I become. Whoa, talk about an admission.
Yeah.
But I want to say that pay to play, that hurdle, that gatekeeping, that bar for entry for even the most calibered, appropriate representative of my will, your will, the people, if that on its basis is like what can make or break the whole, I don't know, kit and caboodle. That alone can't be called democracy.
No, we've seen even committee assignments. We've seen a couple representatives come out and like leaked, campaign kind of meetings where they say, hey, I need to raise $500,000. I've already won the office, but I need to raise $500,000 so I can give to the Republican war chest so I can be part of this specific committee so I can do the thing I want to do. There's just several. We only see sometimes we only see the first level. Get your name out there on pamphlets and all, TV and all that, just so you're even considered to be on the ballot.
Have you guys ever seen the Evan Almighty?
Of course.
So like he's a junior senator, but he gets a nice office because the senior dude wants him to vote with him on a bill and gives him all these perks and trying to push him to vote. That's how our democracy works.
And that's why
someone comes in with innocent thoughts, and then you see, well, if I want to get this or that done, I got to vote for this or that, even though I don't agree for it. Like it's a give and take. Like our democracy isn't democracy.
And that's why we have this.
You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours.
And when we have these like omnibus packages, like the infrastructure bill, when people come out and say one of the best things Biden's done is his infrastructure package. Okay, what's your favorite part of the infrastructure package? Because for every good thing, there's at least 3 or 4 bad things in here or at least waste that don't make sense. And it's all just the larger these bills are. And I think we're eventually going down to this point. We're going to pass 2 bills every year. We're going to pass a budget. We're going to pass infrastructure. That's it.
Yeah.
And everything we've ever wanted is going to be in these bills. And we're going to do the Nancy Pelosi system of, well, we got to pass the bill to find out what's in it. And it's all these.
Just think about what he just said.
No, that's a real quote.
We have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Well, Alex, you're a lawyer. Tag-ons, man. That's a big part of legislative law. Tag-ons. They go, well, this law is about giving money for war orphans. It's like, well, let's tag on this. And it's like the bill fails. A bill everyone would vote for. They try to tag something on and it fails. Or it's like, let's do money for this. Well, let's tag on money, a raise for senators. It's like they tag on these things, or like there's a bill for this. Well, if you want Ohio to vote for it, there better be some that comes our way, like an improvement to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or money for the Lima Tank Factory.
Right.
There's always those things you got to add on to get the votes you want. So a simple bill that you think everyone would vote for suddenly becomes $1 billion bill that involves all 50 states because that's the only way it's going to get passed.
Governing by omnibus.
What I appreciate is how much the bill itself has become a debate prop. Like, how many senators or representatives have you seen where they walk in and slam the bill on the desk just to emphasize that like, if you want to get a bill thrown out, just freaking print it out and show it. That seems to work every time. Every time the opposition walks in and goes, boom, this giant brick, this is what you're voting for. They're telling you one sentence, but we don't know what else is in the rest of this. And then everybody's like, yeah, no. So like now, one, that at least brings a little goodwill. That means when people realize what else can be snuck under our nose, they get a little head on their shoulders. But it's scary. How much have they snuck through? And again, we know this. They use situations of terror, emergency to sneak in.
Well, they're going to shut down the government if we don't pass this bill, and that's eventually we're just going to keep doing that because that works until the government's going to run out of money and we can't pay for the parks, we can't pay for the police, can't do this, that, or the other, and now we have it's the 11th hour. Well, this is all we got. I don't have a bill in the waiting. There's nothing else here, so it's either pass this or we shut the government down. And you want to go see the Smithsonian, you want to go see the Air Force Museum. Can't do that unless I pass this bill. They hold us at gunpoint and tell us that this is the only way. It's our only option. While we sit on our hands for weeks on end. They know when the government's going to run out of money. It's never a surprise, but they always act like it's a surprise.
David sounds like a circle jerk. Before we move on to the comments, can we take it to Ricky? Ricky, do you have any thoughts for us? What are you thinking?
All right. First on the donation they get. I don't know where to get it from. It's from the big donors, It's not from the regular people, as y'all said. We need as Alex's idea again, the stipend. Everybody need that one stipend, and vote on our interests. They don't care on your politics. Just vote for your best interest. If you want better roads, and that's what he's saying, get better road. Vote for that guy. If this guy's lowering medicine, vote for that guy. Like everything is colluded. It's too muddy. The water is too muddy to tell the truth nowadays. So you kind of, if you do vote, I'm not saying I do. If you do vote, you're kind of voting blindly because you don't know the truth. You know. And you guys say infrastructure bill. You know, I heard Obama, Trump, Biden, and almost everywhere I've been, the roads are still shitty.
Fingers,
So,
they're all fingers of the same
like-
hand, Ricky.
You know, so I don't know what infrastructure bill. Maybe it's for the museums or like, you know, the national treasures, but not for the regular people, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they give the money to the state, right? And the state divided however.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our,
Well, the trickle down effect ain't working so well. It's muddy waters.
it's just trickling right into my yacht's pocket. Brian, comments?
Yeah, so Ricky pointed this out, and I didn't know this until he pointed it out. Bama just got monetized live for posting. Yeah, well, let me just give a little context before
Wait,
that.
what?
Oh
He
my
got
God.
monetized?
So they actually deleted a comment
Yeah.
from your post.
So,
God.
Bama said, "I wonder if it's
Moderated.
real gold in the shoes for that price. Better be." And I'm not gonna say what I said. And then Ricky said the gold member shoes from Austin Power days. Bama said, "Yeah, and Trump is a fat bastard. Trump is fat bastard, and instead of get in my belly, it's get in my wallet."
I wouldn't have pegged Bama Boys
That doesn't show
anti-Trump.
online.
I'm surprised.
That
And
got deleted.
And then I went through and I tried my darnest to quote it to see if it was actually banned, and I could not post it.
And I'm
It's not
looking
even
on the live
anti-Trump,
comment.
you know. It's just anti-bullshit.
So I love that
Tired
it
of the
got pulled and
bullshit.
it got us in trouble. So Brian's like, let's broadcast this just big across.
And
Oh,
Bama,
I need a double blind.
Bama said YouTube is like they're talking about Trump, the military, COVID-19, and politics. Ban them to the shadow realm.
And you know what? I gotta tell you, I used to want and scratch and claw. I wanted to get out of this shadow realm so bad. Just give me, just love me. Now I'm comfortable here. That's probably the most dangerous part. Is that I've lived in the shadow realm for so long. I'm comfortable here, and we're having a good time. We're throwing our own party. Now it's come join us. Have a party where we say Biden, Putin, and COVID all in one show. Join our party in the shadow realm. Or now I feel like a hipster. You guys go to the mall. We're gonna have our own party.
But
is that it for the comments?
it's not even picking between. David said he wouldn't pick Bama as a Trump hater, but it's like everybody's just BSing, man. Like the whole crap is just muddy. It's just muddy waters, bro. You can't trust none of them.
So I guess I'm gonna kind of bring my point to a close.
All
I'm
right.
gonna just rapid fire a couple other
Okay.
titles with that because I like Ricky's point, but my wrapping thought is this. So first is Representative Rashid Tlaib urges Michigan Democrats to vote uncommitted in protest against Biden. So in a display of opposition against President Joe Biden over his support for Israel's war in the Gaza Strip, she says, this way you can raise your voice. Right now, we feel completely neglected and just unseen by our government. If you want to be louder, then come here and vote uncommitted. And, she's one of her proud members of the squad. So it's funny, left eating the left. She doesn't support her own team because she has her own, I guess, that we have our own fracturing when it comes to Israel and Palestine. Might as well throw those terms in here if we're just piling on, pissing off YouTube. So that being said, you're going to have the congressional floor that's going to be divided. This has been 1,000 years of division when it comes to Israel and Palestine. It ain't going to be solved with, Miss Tlaib here. Now, that all being said, it's interesting her taking a stand, whatever the reason being, against the leading presidential candidate. And it makes you curiously raise an eyebrow. Do we really have an impact in these primaries? I mean, we saw when Hillary Clinton did not win, but they gave it to her. And because really, we all know
she was losing momentum, and then super delegates, she was winning.
In the primary, she did not
The
win.
whole way these delegates get chose is a whole other thing.
Exactly.
A whole other thing.
No, you're 100% right. So you've got Democrats upset, and they're trying to get in the way. But, I want to just acknowledge the Trump situation where he got the $350 million verdict against him for fraudulently inflating the cost of his real estate. What's interesting is GoFundMe took the position of not allowing him to access the money. So they're either going to disseminate the money back, or there's a fight now in court that he should be allowed to use that money. And it's just funny where they draw the line on instances where people can raise money. I mean, the people spoke. If $350 million worth of positions do not agree with this judge's evaluation, or agree with the judge's evaluation that, yeah, it was fraudulent, but we don't think it was worth $350 million worth of punishment. If that's what the people believe, what happened to democracy? What happened to that representation? But GoFundMe, because we're not run by the people, and we're not really run by our government, but we're run by corporations. This corporation gets to take a stand, and it gets to say, no, because we don't like it. We'd stand against it. But what's funny is, again, the benefits to open capitalism and people getting to balance it with their own will. You vote with your views, you vote with your dollars. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank says he will no longer invest in loser New York City after the Trump verdict. Quote, this award, I mean, just leaving the whole Trump thing out of it and seeing what occurred here, I'm no different than any other investor. I'm shocked at this. I can't even understand or fathom the decision at all. There's no rationale for it. It was already on the top of the list of being a loser state. I would never invest in New York now. And I'm not the only person saying that. So they've got lots of work to do to find themselves getting out of this situation. This has all occurred post-pandemic. Winner states versus loser states. We're very worried. Every investor is worried because where is the victim? Who lost the money? This is some arbitrary decision a judge made. This policy, what does this say about the bar, about the legal bar in New York? Aren't they going to question the judge? What is this? I'm sorry. Her words fall on deaf ears to everybody. There's nothing she can say to justify this decision, and this has nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with Trump. Forget about Trump. This is not a Trump situation. This is a New York problem. So again, now here's a businessman who he's kept his politics out of this all because he's a perfect, brilliant businessman. And his whole position is, he's like, I don't care about Trump. This is scary. As a person that's trying to do business here and you're going to screw people for successfully doing business here, I guess I can't do business here anymore. So it goes to show the multiple mechanisms where you have manipulation, you have intervention. It isn't fair doing. And that being said, I just want a final zhuzh on all of this information.
A little cherry on top.
Yeah, the little cherry on top, something that was released today. A lost 22-page transcript discovered at the National Archives reveals that the secret history of how Abraham Lincoln pardoned Joe Biden's ancestor, Moses J. Robinette, in 1864. So I would love to go further into that story, but it just goes to show, like, these aren't me and you. These aren't the mechanics. These aren't the teachers and the engineers of our world. All of us singing Kumbaya, representing ourselves. In 1864, the dude was pardoned by Abraham Lincoln. Who's the dead lady from California that the keeper of the crypt that's the greatest investor of all time? Nancy Pelosi? Oh yeah. Everybody, there's a picture of her at like 19 years old in Kennedy's Oval Office.
Yeah.
So it's like these people have been here forever. They're gonna be here forever. I mean, how about Mitch McConnell standing there being asked about his reelection and he's just spaced out like, are we picking him? Who's picking him based on what he's saying or his thoughts? All I know is he's probably going to win regardless of our thoughts, because our thoughts actually aren't impacting this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a scary place to be. Let's just ending thought. 42 million in the last month, 130 million, breaking records. And I'm having a real hard time believing it's from us, the most voted for president of history. Yeah, we all threw him all that money. No, my position is the people benefiting from having a dead guy running the show footed all the money they could, because who wants to lose this cush deal? I don't know. David, wrapping thoughts.
So I think it's a shame for probably the Republican Party, because we're really just seeing, do we have any Biden stands out there? I don't think they really exist. They're not. This isn't like Hillary Clinton or even like people who were really into Obama or Bernie back in the day. We're just seeing people who are anti-Trump, and it's a shame that I think Jon Stewart put it pretty nicely here, that we have two choices. They're just both kind of bad. And they're not the most ideal scenario. This would have been a perfect opportunity for some young politician to come through with a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, to be able to rally the public around him. It's just unfortunate that we're in this two-party system that allows us to either skew one way or another. And it also, I think the Trump thing, Alex, your point here on the GoFundMe, I think Trump's in a bit of a quagmire here. He's got, I don't think he's able to raise money whilst being going into political office. I don't think he's able to raise money for anything other than going into political office. So he can't actually, I don't think legally he can take that GoFundMe money, just because of the whole situation with the election. Now, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because Doug got upset with me because I ran into a corner and did all this homework while we got prepped. And one of the things that came to mind, because we were talking about the super gold shoes for $400. Okay, so let's say big propaganda man's right, and Biden did oversell or raise more money than Trump did for his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to understand the brilliance of Trump? You're 100% right, David. Campaign funds cannot be used for anything other than the campaign. But Trump's a brilliant businessman. He does things beyond, he understands marketing at a level none of these people do. And so things that positively impact his campaign aren't necessarily under the guise of campaign funds. Every UFC event you go to where an entire stadium of human beings are screaming in positivity and support of you, not only plays well in that city for the clown. There's not a stadium of people that love Trump. But guess what? For the clowns in there that don't love Trump, that plays good. And then that also is being broadcasted in every living room that's also watching UFC that day. Okay, well, you can't use your campaign funds to buy a UFC. We understand Dana White's giving him a ticket, but I'm just saying theoretically, you can't use your campaign funds to buy this ticket that's going to have a significant positive impact on your campaign. But you can use your own personal dough. So if I sell a bunch of tacky freaking gold shoes, $400 a pop, and sell out instantly, he is
making all of that settlement money back.
Well, aside from the settlement money, the sham in New York dead. Leaving that aside, it's his money. That's the brilliance. Is I'd rather sell you Trump wine and Trump towels and Trump steaks. Come to Trump University. You don't need to give money to my campaign, because I'm going to be rich enough to get to where I need to get. And that's great, because then he doesn't need to sell his soul to a clown. Listen, I'm not a Trump guy, far from a Trump guy, but just positives are he doesn't need to sell himself to these people that have, Biden wrapped around his finger. And then even more so, he doesn't have to worry about this legal red tape, because he gets to sit back and go, no. I'm using the gold shoes money, the campaign money that came from, these delegates over here. That's safe. That's being used for pamphlets and door knockers and everything. But I'm using the gold shoes money to, take out I guess ads would count, but just something, going to this event or putting on an event, like doing a music festival. The Trump Music Festival. Okay, well, do that with gold shoes money.
Headlined by Kid Rock.
Yeah. Well, see,
And Kanye.
see,
Oof.
they should hire you. They should hire you.
I agree. Please hire me.
Yeah.
I got some ideas.
So, any other final wrapping thoughts before we toss to Brian?
No, Brian, I want to hear what you got.
I think that the $230 million every day that's going to Ukraine is somehow trickling somewhere in between to get that 42 million a little bit more cushion in his pocket. For his
There's probably
campaign.
something to
Probably.
I think that's
that.
a pretty feasible option, especially with his family and how he's known for embezzlement and laundering.
Well, do you
and all
think
the other
the
fun
Jewish denominational church think they're donating funds for the Biden campaign?
No.
You don't think so?
Yeah, they are. They
Yeah,
do.
they are. They
Yeah.
absolutely are.
Well, why do you think Miss Talib doesn't like him?
Probably a lot to do with that.
I'd go out on a limb.
Their support on a particular country.
I'd go out on a limb.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Well, one last thing before we wrap this up. This is why I just have less faith of Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So remember way back when, right when she started her, I forget if this was 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. She was going against Nancy Pelosi because it was one of the very few single issue bills that was brought to the floor, and it was for the funding of the Iron Dome system for Israel. She's on like C-SPAN on the floor crying in her support to like not vote for this. But Nancy Pelosi told her, "Nah, you're voting for this or you're done. You're fucked." And she votes yes, right for this. And it just shows that at least Rashida Tlaib principled on one fact. I may not necessarily agree on much
But isn't she a part of the same
But
squad?
the Iron
She is
Dome
part of
is
the
one
same.
of the like most proven defenses of all time.
What?
And Israel's under constant
It's very
before all
effective.
this stuff under constant rocket attack. And the Iron Dome defense system that we helped fund has proven to be so effective. So we funded that with their help, and we benefit from that information. Like, you think all of our
What
defenses
information?
that we're making now are? He's talking about how people were against the Iron Dome funding for Israel.
They were
we
against
benefited
us,
from that.
United States,
And
voting
it's now
for.
one of the most proven air defense technologies in the world. It has stopped more rockets more efficiently than any other air defense, like based on.
And yet here we are
And
again.
we get to use that technology.
Sure,
we helped
sure,
fund
sure.
it. They developed it. They tested it for us.
And like a
and we get
good
that.
like the good political monkey, we continue to chase our tail. The reality is you're looking at why we need it. You're questioning people that or pointing out those that may question it. And the reality is I'm sitting here going, why are none of us looking at the person that, I don't know, sells iron domes? Maybe that's the person we need to be talking about or looking at. Yeah, well, that sparked something, right? We didn't even talk about the guy that made you lose half a paycheck every 2 weeks. Yeah, guess where it went? To that guy, to the guy that sells iron domes. I want to talk to that guy. I want to talk about that guy. That's my wrapping thought. That's it.
That's it.
You're good.
All right.
Well, I
Yeah,
got one
I'm
quick
good.
thing.
All right,
Alex,
Doug.
you at some point mentioned how like that was it David O'Leary, right, from Shark Tank?
Kevin
Kevin.
O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary was talking about like the New York stuff. Well, like Tesla moved out of California
Yeah.
because of their policies towards companies. So
Great
these
point.
two
Did
big
they move?
states right now.
Are you talking about Delaware?
No.
Oh,
Tesla left
was in
California and went to
left it,
Texas.
Moved to Texas.
Didn't
along
they make
with
the biggest?
SpaceX.
Didn't they have the largest manufacturing facility in the world in
And
California?
they moved it to Texas because California's laws were so unfriendly. They made so much money off of these tech industries and all this that they thought, you know what, we can get away with whatever
We
policies
could strong arm
want
them like a
because
mafia.
they're here.
Yep.
They're not going to move. Well, guess what? They did.
Yeah.
So New York should be worried if someone like Kevin O'Leary, a dude who has made money off of advising these companies, If they're going to move out of New York, like they're moving out of California, like those tech companies in California, Google, all that, they're slowly diminishing their footprint there because guess what? The policies are so much more restricted. The taxes, everything they have to do. Oh, we can't fire an employee if they do this without them having done this. Like we have to pay an employee for this unless they do this. No. We're going to go to Texas where we can do this. We're going to go to, I don't know, Ohio where we can do this. Hey, Ohio's got plenty of manufacturing space open for grabs.
Let's be very clear. You definitely don't get to go and destroy your place and then come and move to destroy my place. So stay where you're at.
If we're making
Keep
money
screwing
for
up your
state,
place.
And we're threatening to leave, you better take note because plenty of companies have already done that. Tesla, SpaceX, and now you got Kevin O'Leary even saying you should be
I
weird.
like that point. I like you raising that because in the show in the past, we've had plenty of dialogue on the mass exodus in California, everybody leaving California.
Yeah.
But one thing we really haven't acknowledged, and it's because this is really the first sign of it, but we haven't really seen other beautifully blue sanctuary cities getting what they deserve, right? Like Chicago is worse than the Wild Wild West at this point. Like even a musket couldn't go totally through you. So, or like a old Remington handgun, like those things didn't do anything like they do today. So, you've got Chicago's more dangerous than the Wild Wild West. New York is literally falling apart and is a bottomless pit for business, even though that's the epicenter of this country's business. So it's interesting. This is the first sign of other blue states getting a little taste of what their medicine. I like that point, Doug, just because New York really hasn't had to face the impacts that they've created. Like even look at, they have this Italian dope that touches people, kill all your grandmas, put everybody on ventilators, and then just throw him away the second he isn't useful. But they love using him as a pawn, right? Like at some point they have evaded accountability around every turn. And it's interesting, at some point accountability, reality comes knocking. I don't know.
I think we gotta remember we gotta separate the larger cities that have a bit more of a controlling stake versus the rest of the state. So for New York, remember, I think New York City, there's a lot of policies we probably don't agree with in New York City, but we also have to remember the businesses that are there populating New York City or the surrounding areas are mostly bank, financial,
right?
Like the policies that are really the issue that like you and I have aren't the issue for most of these executives and those in that banking industry. And New York City, New York City and LA are great places to be if you're rich. You are filthy rich. And those places allow you to be just absolutely ruthlessly wealthy. For the commoners like you and me, these aren't the best places in the world for us to live.
We need to acknowledge the person in Buffalo, New York is in their lifestyle and the welfare provided by their state is advantaged by rich, wealthy companies building their businesses in even those cities they don't live in, right? So Kevin O'Leary developing major companies in New York City benefits blue-collar man in Buffalo, New York. And so these mass exoduses are not just going to hurt the blue cities. It's going to have a ripple effect to even the folk that don't support the policies that are going to negatively impact its state economy.
I disagree on the principle that it's like when Tesla came into, here'd be probably a better example. Remember when Amazon were doing HQ2? They were doing all the cities are going to go around, say, hey, well, we want you here. We want you there. Yes, Columbus wants HQ2. Cincinnati wants it. Cleveland
and
wants
New York was going to build one, Queens District, but AOC and all her pawns fought against it, and all those people lost jobs.
Yeah, what happened? They ended up going. They wanted to go to New York City regardless. So they did this whole charade. They did this whole parade. All these cities basically said, "Oh yeah, here's our demographics." Like a lot more intimate data than even like the federal government's going to have the census information. Amazon's able to get that. All the new infrastructure plans in the city, and they still just went to New York City instead. They didn't go to Columbus. They didn't go to because these places basically bent over and said, "You have your way with me. I am your oyster. Come have it." And they still went to New York City. So I think there is a gravity that these cities are going to have regardless. But I don't think because Amazon HQ2 is going to go into New York City, that, blue collar Joe in Buffalo is really going to benefit day to day that much. Maybe some of his, tax dollars might get a little bit better spent. There's just more stuff going. There's just more tax pool money for better roads. But I don't think that's going to trickle down all the way to Buffalo. Maybe to New Jersey of all places, but not Buffalo. So I think it's got to be a bit more directly related.
The state across the lake versus
New Jersey is propped up by New York City by a major degree.
I hear you. I resonate with your position that the reality that it actually is going to have as much of a ripple down as the theory proposes. But I want to emphasize that that's the teachings of trickle down economics, right? So the BS that they spoon feed us is that's exactly how it works. But you're kind of leaning on a more harsher reality, which is we're screwed either way. As long as they've got the steering wheel, we're stuck.
Yeah, and something like like state tax policy. Yeah, absolutely. You're not benefiting as much in New York as you are in like Pennsylvania, or like gun policy. Like New York's a bit more restrictive than Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Well, maybe not New Jersey, but some of the other surrounding states are. So yeah, that definitely does have an impact and an effect. But I think we do need to remember when we're criticizing some of these states, we're criticizing like the major blue cities, like the really hardcore cities that are causing a lot of they're taking a blind eye to crime. They're not putting the resources towards it that they, we believe they should. But out in like, rural California, it seems to be pretty fine.
I just want to point out, for a guy that works so hard to avoid the circle jerk, you can't point out a single Republican city that is facing these same trials and tribulations. So that being said, let's finalize this topic. Go to the final. Let's wrap this bad boy.
Let's wrap this bad boy.
One final topic. We really can't go into it as deep as we probably would have liked, but let's keep it contentful. So the Putin interview.
Yeah.
You watched it.
I watched it.
I watched it. Dougie didn't watch it yet when we did the show last week. So I told him we were saving it for this episode. So before I dive in head first, I want to get your thoughts on the Putin interview with Tucker Carlson.
So the interview, exceedingly boring. Just in general. Like
interesting.
There's probably about a good 5 to 10 minutes of like good stuff out of how long is that interview? Like 2 hours, hour 45, 2 hours,
2 hours, 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there's really 10 minutes. I think everyone's like, okay, that's some good stuff here. And the rest it's kind of dry and kind of boring. I think I want to start off my conversation with the discourse around the whole thing, because you would have thought, boy, seems like every news outlet, and I'd even say little Fox News and some of the conservative leaning ones as well, as like we're just platforming Putin. Tucker's just this. The only reason Tucker Carlson got the interview is because Putin just thinks he's going to say everything he's going to want him to say. It's going to give him an opportunity, basically, just to be the Putin show. And I think kind of the interview is the Putin show, but I don't think as much as the media ended up saying it was.
Right.
But definitely, I think a lot of people had a kind of, you remember the interview with
with
Seth Rogen, that he was going to make Putin cry and the whole country's just going to erupt in
North Korea
in revolution. Yeah, that was
Kim
never
Jong-un.
going to happen. Anybody that's of this high ranking you're never going to actually call them out on a policy, and they're going to directly answer like, well, you know what? You're right. Maybe I shouldn't be killing Ukrainians for no reason. Or we weren't going to get that. I think the expectations a lot of people wanted was like, well, what? This was pretty much what I expected. Tucker got in a couple good points, pushed back just a little bit, and then And it's just kind of that was just about it. We got a nice history lesson of of the history of Russia and why Russia lays claim to Ukraine, which
not to mention all his incorrect Poland comments. Like
what?
Poland asked to be invaded.
No, he didn't say anything like that. And he actually emphasizes he has no intention in going into Poland. See, here's the problem. You interpreted something that was important and globally impactful through other speakers. And that's the problem. I double down on everybody wants a political opinion, but nobody wants to do the political homework. So what's my position? You go, it's exceedingly boring. I now have to confront the fact of how much of a loser nerd I am and how I've allocated my time.
All right.
Because I look at it as education. And so I listen to hundreds of hours of podcasters, Jordan Peterson, like people, like brilliant people. I will listen to Jordan Peterson just as much as Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer, laughing comedians. So yeah, a lot of it's, silly fun time, but also some of it is productive. Regardless, constructive dialogue that makes you think and dissect whether you agree or disagree, whether it's a circle jerk or whether it's punching in the crotch. Either way, like constructively thinking is a positive. And I appreciate your position. Like, I have nothing but respect for you're always educated in these topics. You're somebody that stays within the know, but even for you, it's exceedingly boring. And to me, that speaks to where, truthfully, and this is an outsider looking in because I don't relate to this as much, but podcasting is becoming an increasingly popular platform or medium because people want long form conversations. And I don't want Putin in 10 minutes or 2-minute sound bites. I want Putin, and I want Putin with no time limits. And as long as Putin wants to talk, Putin can talk. So what's interesting is Tucker Carlson opens the interview up and he goes, listen, it seemed like he was filibustering. So I started interjecting and cutting him off and wanting to steer him back to Ukraine. Whoa, stop. Why are you talking about 100 years ago? Okay, stop, come back. Why are you talking about 50 years ago? And he was doing a history lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it did get to the point. So it finally got to the point of answering Tucker's question about Ukraine. It took about 40 minutes to get there.
Yep.
But here's the truth and why I don't find it exceedingly boring. I find it exceedingly important and fruitful is because he found it necessary to give me 40 minutes of history to explain this nuanced point. I don't know Russia's history. I don't know about your public ass education, but they didn't throw that to us. No. And we also know it would have been some manipulated interpretation of it. That all being said, Putin's interpretation of it was obviously his own interpretation of it. I'm not getting an empirical truth from Putin's historical record of Russia. But what did I get? I got an in-depth understanding of how Putin internalizes his country's history. Now, I just want to say a scary part of it is it took 40 minutes for him to explain he has zero intention in going into Poland, and the Polish people are just acting goofy over there because I have no interest in going there. Doug got none of that from the interview, but Doug didn't listen to the interview. Now he's gotten plenty of interpretation from clowns like Jon Stewart, those that dance around for the machine.
I read plenty of.
All right, no, you read other people's interpretation.
I hadn't actually watched it, but I've read plenty of different multiple sources,
and again,
and they all had a different view. And
yet none of them are your view because you literally didn't do the homework. So instead, you spent more time letting people digest it for you than you just doing it.
But I enjoy seeing the different views because now when I do eventually watch it, I have all these different views to then watch it.
So is the concession through your comment and understanding that no matter what, for you to definitely have the full view, it requires you to definitely watch it for yourself.
I just haven't had enough time to
but
watch.
but that's not how you just wrapped up your point. But
at
then
least
I'm
now I
gonna
have
get
enough.
and then I'm gonna get to that point where I'm able to watch then the interview. But the reality is, Doug, it took all these other readings and us pushing the point for you to then finally want to go do that. I'm not trying to push. I'm using this as an example.
Yeah.
The example is, Doug, I'm telling you, as people that did watch it, he makes it very clear he has no intention of going to Poland, and that's emphasized in numerous aspects. So I'm using this just as one small example, as that isn't something you took away from it. You got a totally opposite perspective, and you just said you balanced that with all the different views, the good views, the bad views. I balanced it, but you came out with an untruth. It actually isn't truth that he said that. So it's scary that they're able to control the narrative to such a degree that unless you dive into the exceedingly boring video, you're not going to know what came from one of the more important interviews of today. Brian.
Before I comment, William Shatner said,
Shatner.
sounds like Dougie is compromised.
God forbid, I don't agree with the almighty Alex.
So I did
Because I
watch
haven't
it.
watched the full thing.
I did watch the full thing, and I sympathize with David. And the first half hour, I was definitely like, I don't know anything about what he's talking about. I don't know Russia's history in the slightest. So like, not that I was exactly bored. I just didn't know exactly what he was talking about. And
the history is the best part of it all, though, because history is what lets us know what we can do to prevent future.
Or what led us to where
you're
we're at.
also getting
Or
his
what led us to
interpretation
here.
of history. I think that's the other issues. Well, he's monologuing, not even on just like going into the depths of his decision of invading Ukraine. He's going
But
to
other leaders.
of the other
Past
leaders, and it's like
He's trying to compare himself to people that existed 100 years ago
Yeah.
because he can't prove that he's the same type of dude. Like, oh, Russia had an empire of all this big. Okay, well, that's great, but guess what? Nazi Germany destroyed your empire, and guess what? Like, all these independent states revolted against you. So maybe your empire wasn't all that great. Maybe
But again, it's interesting
on
listening.
an empire 100 years ago,
Right.
in current today.
And what's fascinating is listening to a world leader in that situation talk about that today. Like, he acknowledges exactly that.
Yeah.
Leaving World War II and transitioning into modern day. Brian.
okay, so the point where I was like, oh, this is the meat and potatoes of what we're looking for, is him talking about the Nazi and neo-Nazi infiltration and but
Right. Rome
he
never
really
fell.
talked about
Rome
like,
never fell.
in Ukraine. This is the reason he's in there, is because he is trying to eliminate the current Nazis that are pretty much running the country, and they are all in favor of, like, all these politicians in Ukraine are in favor of this neo-Nazi regime.
Yeah.
Too bad the president of Ukraine made his career off of being a comedian.
Right.
So,
he played the piano with his penis.
he's a total Nazi. He only made jokes off of people his entire life. He must be
What?
such a bad guy.
That's a bad point, Doug. I'm going to give you that one.
No, like
That's a
that
bad
dude,
point.
like-
Because guess what? He was also put in there by our bad actors. So he's not anything but our
like
puppet.
nothing his like
All right. That
nothing
being
in his
said,
life
David.
has made him connect to a Nazi.
And I think what's interesting, probably what's more interesting about the history lesson that he gave is what he left out. So there's several kind of key pieces that he just, we're going to just ignore. We're going to ignore this, and we're only going to tell you the good parts. And I think that's a bit more telling. And that,
Sure.
And was anyone really surprised?
But what are the bad? If you're higher educated in the Russian history that I'm missing, what were the bad parts? Because I'm ignorant to it. What are the bad parts that he left out that we're
I
missing?
think there's several details in between, like the 50s and like World War II, that kind of led that the whole I guess prior to that, the reason, the history of Germany and Poland before the World War II started. and there was some kind of key. Really painted it one way when I think history kind of describes that as another way when it
Right.
comes to kind of how that went down.
Fair.
So so he highlights that, and I think there's some relations of like Russia to the rest of the world after the 50s. He does mention a little bit of the Cold War stuff. I'm surprised he didn't mention more of kind of the U.S. takeover of the oligarchs in that time. I'm surprised he didn't really just hammer that home, because he did make a point. I think one of the more interesting parts of that interview is when Tucker Carlson talks about, like, well, why don't you, why are you not getting your message more out there?
Right.
And he's like, well, the United States, they own the media. They go through that.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right. Now, this is a perspective I think is very interesting.
It was.
What does he have to say? And he kind of goes on it a little bit, talks about it a little bit, and then just kind of drops it. They just kind of move on to the next thing. And when we have, I think probably the most interesting part of it was when Tucker pushed back on that journalist. It's like, well, couldn't you have him back? Couldn't we do that? I think that was the most pushing back he did on like a real single topic, and kind of kept pushing. And it was just very clear. Putin was like,
No,
I'm not doing that.
That's a fair point. Here's what's interesting. We need to acknowledge that this dude is a war criminal, right?
Yes.
He's a dictator,
Yeah.
killing people. Dude's an absolute problem.
Yep.
And so what's scary is I left the interview, and he played upon all of my aggravations with my personal government.
Yep. Yeah.
I want peace. Like, this comes back to when I was talking with Doug on the last episode. This is like Saving Private Ryan. Like, we realize I don't have an issue with you. It's the people that run my show having a problem with the people that run your show. And dad to dad, I have literally no beef with you. You don't exist to me. So we're fighting other people's fights. That all being said, it's a scary world when the guy that's a war criminal is singing the songs and praises of peace more than the freedom police of the world. And he brings up legitimate. So one, he knows how to play on what our disdain is for ourselves. He emphasized throughout numerous occasions how much we are compromised. And what makes him a leader worth listening to is where our leaders only get 4 to 8 years to actually become a master. And by the time they're a master, they're gone. This guy has lived through all of those presidents. And so where they go through the revolving door and the next clown is replaced, he's been able to develop a wiser perspective through experience by watching them come and go. And through every president, he'd have a dialogue, explain to him issues he sees or issues with them internally. The president would slam their fist and go, I'm changing that. And then guess what? Nothing changed. And before you knew it, that person was replaced, and the next person was saying the same thing. He brings up a specific scenario. We know that a crux of this tension has to do with NATO. And there was an agreement that NATO was never going to be coming to Russia's doorstep and be making it to Ukraine. And there was the instance where he was speaking with Bill Clinton, and he goes, talking to Tucker, he goes, it was actually the room right next door. And Bill Clinton, I shaking his hand and I go, what do I need to do to actually set myself up to join NATO? Like, I'm interested, and I'd like to take the necessary steps to proceed with that.
Yeah, is this possible?
Right. Is this possible? And he goes, oh, of course. Yeah, we'll make it happen. Sounds good. We'd like to make that happen. Then they all convened, or they all broke for lunch. And when they reconvened, Bill Clinton pulled him aside and said, yeah, I spoke to the higher ups at the powers that be, and they said that there's no way that could happen. So, Tucker kept pushing the position. Well, what if he said you could have? Would you have? Would you? And he's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because they said no. So I said I wanted to take the necessary steps. That should be enough to indicate for you. They told me I couldn't. That's the real takeaway. So we're in now the Ukraine instances. Okay, here's what's scary. When's the last time you talked to the dead guy, the president, Biden? He goes, I don't talk to him. He doesn't talk to me because he's actually a dead guy. So, and we know that dude could not talk on one of the most important phone calls. We can't entrust with him. So we now have to talk through our agencies. Okay, well, I don't know about you guy over there watching us. Did you vote for them? Because I didn't. So again, these war criminals that we don't vote for that call the shots, they're the one on the phone call with Putin. And when Putin is wishing to look for negotiation and, a meeting table, their response is, we're actually doubling our military intervention. Okay, so here's what I want to say. Admittedly, the dude's a war criminal. Admittedly, I should never support such a terrible human. But it should stand out to you or us that somebody of such terror and problems can strike a chord and speak to the American public and resonate with our will more than the constituents that are supposedly democratically representing us. So to me, all of what a good interview, all that's moot. My takeaway is this guy is a war criminal that also resonates with us more than our own government does. That is more dangerous than a journalist going over and interviewing him.
I don't disagree with the point on the face. I think we take probably a little bit too much kind of for him at face value for what he's saying on the NATO things. We're trusting the NATO story is a true story. We're trusting that, again, he was allowed to be in NATO, and I think there's probably some corroborating evidence that suggests that's allowed. But I think a lot of what he comes, it's just still kind of excuses. I don't like the NATO excuse. Like, well, NATO kept expanding, so I had to retaliate. Well, the issue is that a NATO country has never invaded somebody. They've never. Well, Christ. I guess a NATO country that isn't the United States hasn't invaded somebody post World War II. Through any significance, where we see Russia's invaded Georgia, Crimea, and now we have Ukraine.
But again, like Doug said, we don't even have a politician running that country. Having a guy that plays the piano with his penis who's just a comedian, that's an invasion. That's an invasion by us because he's one of our guys. What's the comment? You got me.
Well, I mean, Ukraine's been a country way before him.
You said the Ukrainian president play the piano with what now?
Yeah. If you didn't know that, you should Google it.
The
Ukrainian president was on.
It's absolutely a thing.
Yeah.
He was known for that. He's a comedian performer. Like, he did that stuff.
Yeah, but Ukraine's been a sovereign country way before Zelensky.
Let me tell you, I'd rather have him as president than our current two options.
That might be a hot
Whoa.
take.
Now that's a hot take. Where's the hot take banner on
that
that?
is a hot take.
Whoa.
Oh, there
Wait,
it
you
is.
just said the war criminal as president?
He's saying Zelensky. He'd rather have
Zelensky.
Zelensky over
The comedian,
Biden,
the
Trump.
dude is leading his country through war. You know what? I respect him a little more than our current two candidates who are just trying to grab and hold on to power.
I do have to say,
Well, I think Zelensky is also grabbing and holding on.
I was
to power
gonna-
Yeah,
as well.
but he's trying to save a country. I mean, a
Well.
little more respect there versus Trump trying to save his life, his entity, his career. And Biden is just trying to hold on to his sanity.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Zelensky is Biden. He is Biden.
Yeah,
Biden's not in control of shit. Zelensky's not in control of shit. Zelensky just has a little bit better of a working brain. That
True.
being said, I am curious. Ricky, can we bring in Ricky? Ricky, are you aware of this interview at all? Has it reached
Man.
your orbit?
Yeah, I seen it, but I didn't know it was part of the homework, man. I didn't get it. If I knew it was part of the homework, I would have watched it, playing
No,
the
you
game
could.
and listen, you know what I mean? But
No, I feel you.
not my neck of the woods. I love America. I love my roots and my culture, but I love America. And yeah, I ain't gonna say nothing because I don't know nothing that was said in the
Oh,
interview.
bless.
Fair enough.
I like that.
All right,
I like
all right.
that.
America.
Fuck
yeah. I didn't actually say the word, but whatever.
All right, so let's give us some rapid thoughts because
All
this
right.
is a late one. All right, there were some things. It was interesting, and I want to draw it because you kind of glossed over it. What's interesting are the things that Putin didn't address. So you think he would have brought up our pedophilia problem, the LGBT problem, the I mean, man, I would have loved for Tucker to push at some Russian troll issues. Like the fact that that wasn't addressed was something that would have been interesting. But I want to also acknowledge you brought up how America didn't remove any of these oligarchs. That wasn't really addressed because I think that was part of the game plan. I think the game plan was to come off reading as you guys got a circus over there.
Yeah.
You got nothing but clowns, and actually they're all uneducated idiots. So I just want to display myself. Like, look at Obama. Obama was literally no president had more unmanned drone killings than Obama. He's just out here obliterating weddings. At the same time, we don't care because he spoke beautifully.
He was the first African American president. How could he have done wrong?
We just love the fact that we had this president that spoke fluently. He spoke to the country elegantly, and you know, some sell it as a uniting, you know, way of presenting our leadership. Well, I think that was the goal of this interview. I think the goal of the interview was to present themselves in that manner, to come off as like, I'm more sophisticated, more well-tempered, and I have a stronger moral compass than your leaders. So I think deep down, he would have loved to drudge those issues up in front of the Americans and, you know, pick at a scab that he knows haunts us. At the same time, it would have then trumped the goal of just coming off as clean and polished as a politician could. And so we don't have to talk about what he does to his people. I mean, you know, I was talking with a coworker today. It's like, yeah, Tucker walks through this train.
Oh,
the train station is
get to that
immaculate.
Train station.
You can eat off the floor. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, okay, but I'd rather have a train station with rats and be able to tweet that our president is a dead guy than like I'll lose my tongue if I but at least it's like, yeah, no, the train station's that clean because if you throw your McDonald's wrapper on the ground, you lose your hand.
Yep.
Like it gets to look that way because we don't have autonomy. Some of these things are a symptom of, yeah, everybody gets free will. So that all being said, I think there was a purpose to the things that weren't. I think everything was calculated, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think the calculation for why those things weren't mentioned were to come off more sophisticated and you know, more well-tempered than our politicians. And I just want to point out that a major takeaway from me was, yes, there was no admission by him or Tucker pointing out that, like, we didn't see any of his faults. I'm not going to ignore that they are there and they are deep and strong. But what I did take away that was fruitful was the highlighting of all of our faults, where we are no longer represented by the people, and the people that are doing the representing, they have no control. It's agencies that we have no input on that are pulling all the strings, controlling this whole. I mean, listen, they look. What did we learn from the Twitter files? They control it all. And so it's scary that we spent 2 hours debating presidents, like, you know, Doug's chiming in, presidents that literally have no impact. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of that phone, as long as those 3-letter agencies are pulling the shots. And I think a way of diffusing that, I want to bring it back to a point that Ricky brought up that I forgot to do in my wrapping thought of the last one, which I want to re-emphasize a theory that was proposed to me a long time ago. And I haven't brought it up on the podcast in a while, and I actually don't think I've ever brought it up with you.
Oh,
but
okay.
A way of solving these issues of, like, you know, lobbyists, big money intervention, and this lack of representation, Ricky glossed upon it, but to fully articulate what it looks like. Nobody, no entities can donate to campaign funds. You eliminate that. So lobbyists and being able to impact it with private money is gone. These court trials that determined companies are private individuals, yeah, that shit's gone. And what you do is whatever, you know, Biden making that claim that, like, you know, the barrier to entry is this huge standard of money. Well, the way to diffuse that is calculate what it takes to be a player, what campaign funding is necessary. Then you roughly divide that in a stipend to all American citizens. So, like, let's say they need whatever, $130 million to run a campaign. Well, we take the 260 million divided by, for two different candidates, or you just go with 130 million, whatever. Political scientists figure out what the best amount is. You allocate a stipend to every American citizen. It's not good. You can't just go to the grocery store or the pot store and buy stuff with it. You can only donate it to particular electorates' campaigns. What does that do? It not only disarms all these corporations and private interests, but then what do people complain? I love it because I live in Ohio. It's a swing state. Big fan. Big fan. But people don't like the fact that because of the Electoral College and the way swing states work, these candidates don't have to engage with every state at the same level.
Yeah.
They can totally focus their campaigns in these swing states, focusing on Ohio and Florida and Texas, California, because really, how much influence is New Jersey or Delaware going to have? Well, guess what? If you now, for me to get the necessary funding to be a player in this world, I need to resonate with all Americans. That means I can't just focus my candidate in polarized areas. I have to then focus my attention on as many or everywhere, as close to everywhere as possible. So that all being said, I think these are the answers we get to. We need to get private interests out of this. We need to acknowledge, like Putin, like Tucker is not a bad journalist for asking questions and talking to one of the most, what's bad journalism? Jon Stewart and the other clowns criticizing him for doing what they're failing to do. Tucker gave me no interpretation by him. All Tucker gave me was the information for me to evaluate. What's cool is the four people in this room all came to four completely different evaluations. But that's our job. That's your job. Your job is to supply it to me to come to the right, proper solution. So that being said, I appreciated it. Was it long? Sure. I didn't find it exceedingly boring because, like, as Brian indicated, I had never heard any of this before. Like, I've never been exposed to Russia's history, let alone the world leaders' interpretation of Russia's history. Like, that was incredibly interesting to me. I didn't just sit there, like, maybe I need to do a re-education to you, the audience member, on how to digest this type of material. Admittedly, we have now been going for 2 hours and 6 minutes. That's a long-ass episode compared to a lot of our other episodes. Yeah. So let me explain to you how you're intended to internalize this. I didn't expect you to just sit there like mom and pop did in the 60s when the television came in. We all popped popcorn. We just sat around listening to the Rethink Tank. No, this is a mental exercise. Like you go to the gym and do curls. This is your curl. So when you're driving to work, listen to it for 20 minutes. When you're going to the gym, it could be background noise for the gym, but honestly, a vibe, to get the momentum going. I'd rather listen to music. But you know how I listened to the Putin interview? I was making dinner. Then I was eating dinner. Then I was cleaning dinner. And before you knew it, it was 2 hours and I was done. There was actually about 25 minutes I didn't finish. Okay, I listened to that on my way to work. So this isn't podcasts. Long form homework is not something where we're expecting you, Doug, to sit. When you get home tonight, you got to go home and listen to Putin talk for 2 hours. No, but this isn't something you don't get to comfortably avoid this and then still take the hierarchy position that you're within the know. So that's my position. Was it boring? It wasn't the most thrilling. I got a lot more laughs out of a 2 bears, 1 cave, but at the same time, it was important and to me, incredibly valuable in many realms. So I think it's things that, like, when these things present themselves, how many times have I asked you, somebody that wants to be educated in this, how many times have I asked you to sit down and listen to Putin? Once? Yeah, we're not going back and listening to Barbara Walters. Like we're today. This is in the now. How much do you want to stay in the know in the present? And the truth is, you don't. You just want to live surface level. You're just title surfing. Listen to the guys that make you laugh and that you like, and they're telling you how to listen to it. So don't take my word for it. Do your homework and listen to the Putin interview.
I'm a man of history. And Putin's view of history is extremely skewed in many regards. Like he believes Russia is and that this country is ours.
See, I
he
gotta
just
tell you,
chooses to ignore certain points of history
Oddly
that
enough,
don't agree with him.
sure, but I have a hard time taking credence with that because I didn't once hear him giving the history going. So again, you are not talking in the know. So I need to not punching down on you, Doug, because we love you, but I am making a scapegoat example in this one scenario where like these are the situations where you have to bow out, where you got to go, yeah, no, I actually don't know what he said about the history of his country. So until you sit down, you don't get to go, well, we know what he said. He said, no, he actually didn't. And it was actually incredibly fruitful. And then I took it upon myself because I don't like sitting in a realm of ignorance that I went and did extra reading. And I found areas where what he was saying didn't really match at least our historical record of it. Because again, history's told by the victor, it's told by the winner.
Yes.
But again, like you indicated, the best way to get in the know is to balance it with all these different perspectives. But the truth is, how many people interpret the truth through other people's interpretation? And that's the scary part. That seems to be an ever increasing habit of our modern society. I don't know. What are your rapid thoughts?
So I think one thing, so I start off with on the Putin thing. Remember the rumors way back, how towards the early part of the Ukraine invasion, Ukraine war, Putin had like cancer. I think at this point that dispels most of those. Now you could really put on a really good face for about 2 hours, but I don't know if I got the opinion that he's an exceedingly sick man who is
right.
Who's on his.
That was sold to us pretty big.
It was sold, and I think it was sold. And I think it was bought probably more than it was actually sold.
It was sold because he hadn't been in front of a camera in X amount of time. It's like, how often is Biden in front of a camera? How do we know
but he can't because he can't. Because
exactly, that's what I'm saying. So people said like, oh, it's because he hasn't been in front of a camera in X amount of time. Oh, he must be sick.
My whole thing is like a hope that people thought it would be true.
This is where truth shows its head because they were able to sell us an ignorant perspective. But guess what? You can't put Biden in front of a camera for 2 hours and convince us he's healthy. But how were they able to sell it to us? Because we hadn't seen him. Like, he never showed himself. So, like, again, maybe this is a doppelganger. Who knows? But the reality is, it was able to be sold. It was sold. And it was bought because I had nothing to corroborate it by. If everything around me is telling me he's sick, and I go, well, it seems like he's hiding because I don't see him until he's sitting in his giant castle with Tucker Carlson. I'm still under the impression he's sick. But then magically one day, he looks better than any politician representing us, especially at that age.
Yeah, it's sold, but then I think a lot of people just wanted it to be true. Like, I want him to have cancer. I want him to be on his last couple years of life so we can be done.
That's also scary. Nothing's more dangerous than a man that's got nothing to lose.
True. I was just hoping he'd lose it a little quicker so the war would be over. But on your point here about repealing Citizens United, I could not agree more. I think corporations are in fact not people. They're not held to the standards of people right now.
Exactly.
They get all the benefits with some of the drawbacks, but not really as many of the drawbacks. I'd like to see, Xperia, Experian leaks. I'd like to see them go to jail. That doesn't work that way. So I'd love to see that publicly funded. Your point. I'd like to see publicly funded elections, which is your solution, just with an extra step.
Right.
You give it the vote, but it's pretty much the same thing. I agree on that end. But I think on the Putin, my wrapping thoughts on the interview, I didn't really learn anything necessarily new. There was a biased lens, and I knew that going in. In fact, I don't really know exactly what I expected. I watched it. I saw it like, it's not as exciting as the interview with Seth Rogen. And that's what it really, I be honest, it's what I wanted. I wanted to see like a debate. I wanted a CNN just duke it out style debate, have Trump come in the room and just like, they're both gay. They're here.
But you may not make it home with Putin, right? Like if you agitate, like I could push you and we're going to leave this conversation. Like when you're in his, like, it's not like he met you at your land. Like I need to be able to go home. So like, this is your show.
Yeah.
Go at it. Say what you got to say. I also don't want you getting up and leaving.
That's the other thing too. I think a lot of people forget this. Like, you can't just constantly push back. As much as I'd love to see it, I'd love to see just Tucker just do nothing, but you're going to answer the questions that I want, and they're going to be tough for you. Putin really didn't answer a tough question. And, you know, did Tucker try to ask tough questions? I think he did. I think he put the effort out there. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, you know, he's not answering that. He's not going, well, Tucker, you're right. It was wrong for me to invade Ukraine. I'm just going to call him right now. Give me like 5 seconds. We're done. We're pulling out. That's just not how life works. So it just comes out. Just it's an important thing to have. I like that he did. I like to see it. And I hate the discourse around it. And then I also hate the post Tucker after this too. Like, Tucker, just do it. Move on to the next thing. I don't need to know there's chandeliers and there. Yeah, in Nazi Germany, the trains were always on time as well. Well, that doesn't make it a great place to be. Brian, what do you got?
Rapid thoughts.
I think Putin did a really good job of poking and not stabbing our soft spots that we have with the 3-letter agencies and the corporate media being run by the Americans are really good at the propaganda. He responded to Tucker's question really well about the propaganda. But overall, I didn't really, like David said, I didn't get a sense of like anything that was like groundbreaking or like change my mind about like I know this guy is not a good guy, but he also didn't portray that. And I wasn't bamboozled. I wasn't finessed.
I think
in
it's a
any
fair thing.
way. I just think it's worth a watch just so you have your own opinion, and it's not really like brainwashing like a lot of people are pushing.
Yeah, and it also showed I don't think he's, slick or smart enough to, like, there was no wool being pulled over your eyes.
He's not charming enough for that.
That's a good way of putting
He's
it.
not charming enough.
Doug, do you have any wrapping thoughts? Is I kind of bulldozed it? No? All right, that being said, guys, we first need to kick it off to Ricky. Thank you for giving us your time. Check out Just Another Day TV, our good friend in the wings. Ricky, thank you for your time, my friend.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all, man. And the reason I said I love America earlier is because, like, if we was in Jamaica or some crap and we was starting up like this and we was in the wrong district, like, people send people for us and stuff like that. So, you gotta love America where you can have a good Discord and talk about whatever and be on whatever side you want to be and share your opinions in politics. You know what I mean? So that's the only reason and yeah. But Just Another Day TV everywhere, anywhere, Thank you, Alex. Bless up, fellas. It's a great show. As always, Rethink Tank. Bless up, brothers.
Hey.
Ricky, you're the man. Check out Just Another Day TV as always. That being said, guys, we appreciate you giving us your time. We go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. across the platforms, so be sure to join us. The whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. Thanks to everybody in the comments that have been joining in. You bring in some perspective and evolve in the dialogue has really enhanced the conversation and really the whole purpose of this show. So again, thank you. That being said, Brian and I do a live show every Sunday that isn't as politically driven as this was. Talk about swallowing our medicine. We did that today. There's a little bit more sugar on Sundays as we react to funny videos on the internet. Have a cup of coffee with us and kick off your day. That being said, if you're looking where to find our content across the platforms, all the different ones, you could find it on our website at www.rethinkthankpodcast.com. Everything's there in one central location. We're going to be, I know we keep saying it, but we want to really beef it up. So soon we're going to be bringing in the wheel of topics to get your topic involved in the show, to give us some we want to get your involvement. So we want to see what topics you have of top of mind. So join the Neuro Gym on our website to join and drop in some comments. And like we said, we go live every week. So the best thing you can do to support this show is share this episode. Take that link and send it to a friend. If you liked it, that means somebody else will as well. And that's what really helps this algorithm. We grinded it out for a pretty long time. Brian's just been sitting there punching keys. And to give back on all the hard work here, the best thing you could do is share that link. But please don't forget to like, subscribe. Oh my God, they're shutting it off on us.
The lights are done. All right.
Hey, Brian, clapped it right back on. So the Lord is here. Bring us the light. See you next Tuesday. Peace.